bad. Okay, what about now? Can you guys hear me now? Oh, I think you can hear me. Thank you, God. Okay. Guys, I'm on a PC because I've got like a PowerPoint thing going because I want people to be able to see like the visual. And I am not tech savvy at all, like not even a little bit. Okay, so it says good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Amber's here. Thank you for being here, Gareth, my friend. I'm going to start here in a minute. We're going to go through the code of ethics tonight. So it's not going to be study. We're going to go through like what it means to be an ethical counselor. And Amber, since you're testing in August, guess what? This is going to help you with those like how to navigate those scenario-based questions, like what you should do if this, because ideally, like we're working with people. We don't all come from the same background. We don't have the same moral compass. So you have to use the code of ethics to guide your decision making, because when people are dealing with like mental crises, it's on you as a therapist. So there's a lot of responsibility. Lots of responsibility. Welcome in, guys. If you are in here, we're going through the code of ethics tonight. Can you see the PowerPoint or no? Let me know in the chat if you can see it. Because I'm going to try to like... So you said yes? Oh, yep. And your supervisor. Yeah, that's the big thing too. The good thing about being pre-licensed right now is that like you can depend on your supervisor. But when you're by yourself, my friend, it's going to be on you. So like we kind of discussed yesterday, you want to use this as your Bible, if you will, because it's going to tell you what you should do in certain circumstances. Yay, I'm happy you can see it. So we're going to hop in. I think this is also recording, so I can send it to you as well, because I think it'll be a good reference for you. How do I see like, oh, I can see you guys typing. Never mind. I'm going to use my brain. Sometimes I ask questions before I like figure it out. And sometimes I just need to figure it out. But all right. Okay. So those of you in here, you already know me. I'm Shayla, and my platform is basically just supporting people through like what it looks like to become a therapist in real time. Because I know that it's difficult. Like people think therapists just listen to people all day, and no, we don't. Like not only do we deal with everybody else's emotions, we have a whole like ethical model that we have to follow. And as you're studying for the NCE, you're gonna see like ethics questions throughout the whole exam. Okay. So tonight we're gonna sit down. We're gonna go through the code of ethics. We're gonna do the sections A. I hope you have your notes, Amber. Hey, Jakari, welcome in. So we're going through the code of ethics tonight. We're gonna go through section A. I love that for you. You are prepared and you're gonna pass. I'm excited for you, honestly. Hey, sister. I'm happy you love it. Welcome in. Welcome in. This is so needed, especially in the social media space. You see a lot of folks, especially therapists, like, oh yeah, you're not an ethical therapist if you do this or if you don't do that. And I always tell people you have to go and read it for yourself, because at the end of the day, we all come with our own identity. We all come with our own ways of seeing and doing things. So yeah, I'm happy you're here, and you probably have so much insight. I would love to be connected to you. I see your post. Absolutely. Ethical and authentic, both at the same time. Hi, Dion. Welcome in. And so like, I don't want this to be boring. This is not boring. Here's the thing. Like, this is going to serve as like a double, like, you know how you like can kill two birds with one stone? This is going to be beneficial for folks who are sitting for the NCE exam in 2026. But then also, this is going to be beneficial for you. Hi, I'm so happy you're here. Going to be beneficial for you because it's your guiding light as you navigate what it looks like to be a therapist. Okay. You need this, right? We don't have to be robots, but we have to be ethical. So whether you're studying for the NCE, you're in practicum, you're in internship, or if you're a new therapist, or if you've been practicing for years, I mean, years upon years, you need to know that understanding like how to act ethically will make you a better clinician. Hi, Danny. Welcome in. So yeah, let's get into it. Let me know who's taking the exam. Who is a seasoned therapist? Who's in here supporting? I just want to know who's hanging out so I can kind of tailor what I say. Yeah. Make sure you share it out. Yes, you mean passing in September, Dion? You mean you've passed in September, right? Love that. We're going to party. I know, Amber. 8:20. You got this. Excited, but nervous. Yes. Passing in September. Amen. Yeah. Amber, you are on the right track. Season and supporting. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. Honestly. Honestly, I am the type of person where I am going to be a gleaner. I think it was it Ruth in the Bible? Oh my gosh. Was it Naomi or Ruth? I don't know. But the parable of like gleaning, that is me. I will sit under somebody and learn because I just want to be in the know of all the things. So thank you. But anywho, so I want to challenge the way that we approach ethics. Okay. So like I said before, let me know if you guys can see me scrolling down because there we go. Yes, I can see myself scrolling. Right. So you can find the ethics code, the ACA ethics code. Now this is for LPCs. Now I do believe, and you can help me out too, sis, if it's different for, I think it's different for LMSWs, but this is the counseling ethics code. All right. This is the counseling ethics code. You can find it by literally searching the ACA code of ethics. I do know, okay, I'm a nerd, but I love academia and I'm starting my PhD in a couple weeks. So I need to be like studying this too. But so in the code of ethics, they have not updated it since 2014, but allegedly we'll have an update the fall. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You got it, aspiring LPC, and you're going to pass. I'm happy you're here. But they're updating the code of ethics in 2020, the fall of this year. So much is changing after 2026. Did you guys know that in 2027, the NCE exam is going to change? It's going to be a completely different exam, which I think is a good thing, honestly. But hey, that's a conversation for another day, for just like a random coffee meetup. But they're changing it. So you can find the code of ethics by Googling it and looking it up. I will say this will be your Bible, especially if you are a new clinician. The thing about the code of ethics is that like we go through grad school, right? We learn how to be a therapist. We learn all of like the core things, but we forget about like how to be like an ethical therapist, or we're not really thinking about it. And anytime you have a question about any sort of decision that you have to make, you need to be referencing the code of ethics. Okay, I'm gonna say that you need to be referencing it. Okay, and like I said before, this is gonna help you if you are testing this year. I'm so happy yes. I'm going over it and I'm also recording it. So I'm going to send it to y'all. Those of you who are on my email list, if you want to be on my email list, let me know. You're going to get this live recording. But this is going to double as like that additional ethics practice, but then also like it's going to help you answer questions on the NCE. Because remember, it's a standardized exam. The same folks who are updating the code of ethics are the same folks who have who have created the test, right? They're part of the test taking committee, if you will. Okay. So it's going to double as two things. All right. So the mission of the American Counseling Association is basically to enhance the quality of life in society by promoting the development of professional counselors, advancing the counseling profession, and using the profession and practice of counseling to promote respect for human dignity and diversity. Okay. Now, that's a lot of words to say this thing. As clinicians, the field has to be gatekept. I despise when people use the word gatekeeping in the wrong way if they are clinicians, okay? Because we hear the word gatekeeping a lot just in like society, but in our field, gatekeeping actually means protecting the profession, okay? So when we think about protecting the profession, the code of ethics exists for our clients, not for us. They are the guiding principles on how we should behave as people in the profession, okay? That's your first note. This is the guiding principle on how we should behave in the profession. Because this is not a cookie cutter profession, because everybody has their own moral compass, we have our own ways of thinking, there is no way that we can standardize the way that we practice, but we can gatekeep the field and make sure we're not sending out crazy folks to be therapists or people who are not competent enough to be a therapist. We can control that. Hi, Daniela. I'm so happy you're here. I'm so happy you think this is amazing. I've said it before, but this is going to help you if you're taking the NCE, because it's going to help you with those ethics questions. Tonight, the focus is codes A, B, C if we get to it. If we don't, I'm going to be hopping online this whole week. And I'm also recording this. So if you want to be on my email list, DM me and I'll send it. I'll make sure you get the recording of it. Okay. So basically the whole mission is to protect clients. Okay. To protect our profession, but with the mindset of protecting our clients. Absolutely. Okay. It might be small. It's small to me because I need my glasses, but let me see if I can pull this over. So we can have a better, let me see if you guys see this a little better. But anywho, let's see. All right, here we go. Okay. So you can find the code of ethics. Let me know if you guys need support in finding how to access it, but you can literally just Google it. There's not been an update since 2014, but word on the street is that they're going to be updating this at the end of the year. So we'll see. Those of you who are in here now and you're testing in 2026, I believe that you are doing it at the right time because they are changing that exam. Who knows if they're changing it for the better or the worse? Hopefully it's for the better because that exam is very interesting to say the least. Okay. All right. So in your notes, here's what I want you to understand. We start with the counseling relationship because guess what? Therapy is relational. It's about relationships. I don't care what type of theoretical orientation you identify with, whatever grad program you went through, whatever state you live in. The purpose of therapy is to develop a relationship with your client so that they can feel that they can trust you enough to disclose things to you, to be able to do the work. Because if your clients do not trust you, they cannot do the work, okay? That is the main thing. And I believe that the code of ethics starts with this because it lets you know why you're doing what you're doing. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you understand. Me too. I'm interested in seeing it. What I do know is that, and make sure you guys lock in with me by grabbing your heart me so you can know when I go live. TikTok is doing something very interesting with my account. It's not letting me post new things, so I don't know. I'm gonna still go live, and I'll let you guys know at the end of the session my YouTube link because I can do live YouTubes as well. But anywho, as as research progresses and as new things are happening in society, so is the field. So hopefully, hi Danny, welcome in. Hopefully we see positive changes and we just see what changes, if anything changes. Y'all, sometimes it's just a little couple words if I'm honest, but we'll see. But anywho, okay, so Section A is probably the most important section in the entire Code of Ethics. Why? Okay, because everything starts with the relationship, right? So before we're talking about confidentiality, before we're talking about assessment, before we talk about supervision, we got to understand our responsibility to the client, okay? Let's read here. Counselors facilitate client growth and development in ways that foster the interest and welfare of clients and promote formation of healthy relationships. Do y'all see the key word here? Let me know. What do y'all see here? And that first sentence, type it in the chat. What do you see that stands out to you? Dion, you probably know because I've been teaching, looking at the keywords. You can look at keywords and figure out a lot of things. Facilitates. Okay. That's part of our role. Yep. Facilitates. What else do you see? I'm going to read it again. Counselors facilitate client growth and development in ways that foster connection and interest and welfare of clients. This is the Code of Ethics, okay? Think about it. We're reading the Code of Ethics. This is guiding welfare. Yes, ma'am. This is guiding our practice as clinicians because at the end of the day, therapy is not about you as the clinician. It's not about you. If you want it to be about you, go get your own therapist. I'm just saying. It's always going to be about the welfare of the client. NCE little tidbit. Write this down. Anytime you see a question and you read the question and you look at the answer choices, like the question bank answer responses, always lean towards the welfare of the client because the relationship is about the welfare of the client, not about you as a therapist. Okay? If you want it to be about you, you have free will to go and get your own therapist. I'm just saying. Yep. Because I think, like, especially as being a clinician, yes, the field is hard. Yes, we're thrown to the wolves. Yes, there are tons of financial inequities. But at the end of the day, that's not why we started. That's not why we went to school to be therapists. Okay. It's not about us, right? It's about the welfare of the client. Okay. And trust is always going to be the cornerstone of the counseling relationship. We can think about Carl Rogers. So, in grad school, who helps to help us therapists? We need, I'll make the statement that I don't trust therapists who don't have their own therapist. At least at some point in your life, right? You have to. For that point, Amber, right? But when you think about the counseling relationship, it's the cornerstone. Trust is the cornerstone. Think about your core classes when you took the helping professions or the helping relationships course, where you learned how to be a therapist and what it was about. Got to build that trust. It's the cornerstone, okay? So as I'm reading out some of these like standards and some of these like sections, I want you to not just hear the words, okay? I want you to listen to the values that lie underneath them, because guess what? Once you become familiar with the values that lie underneath these things, once you see questions that are scenario based on the NCE, you're going to resonate with them because you've actually gone over the Code of Ethics. Okay? Let me know in the chat. Have y'all ever thought about going through the Code of Ethics as you've been studying? Who has thought about actually like reviewing this stuff? I know when I took the exam the first time, I didn't care about this because I thought I just knew it all. But then when I took it again, I was like, you know what? Wait a minute. There is some good stuff here. This alone will get you through the ethics portion. Good. Dion, never crossed your mind. And that's honest because it didn't cross my mind the first time either. But like very brief. Yeah. Yep. A lot of times, a lot of stuff for me was very brief. All right. But let's go through this because you'll be surprised at just how much y'all already know. Because I will assume the best. If you are acting in the therapist role, or if you're in grad school, or if you're like an emerging clinician, you already kind of know, or what you know what you should be doing as an ethical therapist. But I want you to get familiar with the academic language because that's how you're going to pass. Once you pass, who cares about the material? Okay. I'm not saying who cares about the ethics code because we should all care, but who cares about the material? But let's look at the academic language. Okay. So, let's go. Oh yeah. It's going to be common sense for sure. Right. It's going to be, common sense. So let's look at section A. So client welfare. The primary responsibility of counselors is to respect the dignity and promote the welfare of clients. Type in the chat, what is the primary responsibility of clinicians? What should we be doing? What? Crystal! What should we be doing? The primary responsibility of a counselor. What should we be doing? Promoting what? Welcome in, friend. Yep, exactly. Welfare of the client. Welfare of the client. The dignity and the welfare of the client. It is not about you as the therapist. Where you can get your support is in supervision if you are an emerging clinician, or in consultation with other clinicians who are seasoned. All right? At the end of the day, it's not about you. Client welfare, okay? That is common sense. But in case you get a question on the exam, ding, 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 that may be the answer. That is the answer, not maybe. You know why it's the answer? Because it's in the actual code of ethics. It's not about you as the therapist. It's always about the client. Right? The main and primary responsibility of the therapist is to promote client welfare. Okay. Now, in A1B, okay, you see how like this is the main overarching section, client welfare. There are underlining things that go underneath it that also support the welfare of clients. If you don't protect records and if you're not careful about documentation, imagine all the ways that you can do harm to the client and you're doing opposite of promoting their welfare. Okay? So here's the thing. You have to safeguard and maintain the documentation necessary for all of the services, okay? Wherever you land, if you're an agency, if you're in private practice, whatever EHR system your employer uses, or if you use it personally, it is on you to safeguard your documents. Did you know that you are responsible for client records? Let me know in the chat. Did y'all know that? Y'all, you are responsible for your client records? Yep. In a way, I find a little security being under supervision. My story, supervision second time around, I would have been a counselor for 8 years already had I kept going. I moved states and had to restart the whole process, neither here nor there. But I do find a little protection under that. But then still, it's still on you and the therapist license. Let me know how many, let me know, it's crazy. Let me know how many years. Do y'all know if it's a yearly cap or... Okay, I'm not going to give it away. Hi, Dion. My other friend Dion's in here. Let me know. Do y'all think it's a year? Like, how long are you responsible for their records? Even if you're done with therapy, you've terminated, you're still responsible. I see 7. I see 5. 7. Okay, 7. Yeah. And see, here's the thing. According to Rosenthal, the purple book is 7. But guess what? every state does things differently. Wherever you are, because as a clinician, it's on you to be well versed on the ethics code. Look at your state. If you got time tonight, look it up. Okay? So you know it might be 7. It might be 5, Crystal. It depends on your state. Texas is Texas. Michigan is Michigan. I'm in Michigan. You're in Texas. It could be different. You have to refer to your state's code of ethics. All right? And that's another thing that you need to keep in mind for the exam. If you ever come across like a question that suggests, that asks you something like that, and then you see in the response, refer to the state laws, it's always going to be that one. Write that down. Guess why? Why do you think? Not guess why, but somebody tell me why, because I know why. Someone tell me why. Why would it be beneficial to refer to your own state's law? Why would that be beneficial? Why is it beneficial to refer to your own state's law? What do we think? What are we thinking, friends? Anything happens. You're right. Anything happens, and states do things differently. You know, I finished my grad program in Wisconsin and I'm in Michigan. I'm literally 5 hours away. I would have never thought that they would be so opposing. They are so opposing, y'all. Yep. Especially in crisis or subpoena, you're working and you're licensed in your own state. Exactly, Daniela. That's the biggest thing. And then you're practicing in the state that they license you. Yep. So since you're practicing in the state and where you're licensed, you got to follow their rules. Different test questions and answers. Absolutely. If we're being really practical, Dion, that's true. Yep. Because I don't know if you guys noticed, but like people who test in different states, they have different score requirements. Like I feel like for mine, when I was in Wisconsin, the score requirement was like a 91 to pass. Here in Michigan, it was like a 108. I was like, what does this even mean? It's just different, right? Different in each state. Okay, let's move on, right? So the next subsection, counseling plans, okay? So the counselor and their clients work jointly. Hear that? Y'all know that. Like Daniela said, some of this stuff should be common sense. I'm just going to say it. In my intensive, Dion and Crystal know, in my intensive, I talk a lot about using common sense, your prior knowledge. Some of this stuff is just, you should know it already, but you got to know the academic language, okay? To me, ethics and helping relationships should be the sections where y'all are just grabbing points. Hear me when I say this. You don't have to worry about a theorist. You don't have to worry about a type of research. You don't have to worry about an assessment or a test. Just believe in yourself as emerging clinicians, okay? Believe in yourself and trust what you learned in your grad program and your common sense, because I'm assuming the best for everybody on this live tonight. You're here because you know that you want to be a therapist. You've done the work. You should know this, okay? So ethics should be where you are grabbing those points and you get that confidence boost, all right? So welcome in, Asia. So yeah, it's a joint thing. Just because you are the professional, that does not make you the expert. Because according to Carl Rogers, who is the expert in their own story? Who's the expert? Someone let me know in the chat. Technically, who's the expert in their own story? The client. Yep. We're just the guiding, supporting, helping professional. That's what we are. We are in the helping profession. So we are helping folks live the best life that they can live, okay? So because the client is they're the expert in their own life, it's a joint thing. So anytime you're developing a treatment plan, I am hoping that y'all are consulting with the client, okay? I'm hoping that you know that you don't have to have that treatment plan done right away. I know some employers, especially if you're in CMH, you have a timeline. But yes, Amber, they are collaborative. Yes, it's a process because it's relational, right? This is the first code, the counseling relationship. It's relational. Exactly. Okay. So counselors and clients regularly review and revise their plan. Let me know in the chat, yes or no. Y'all know that treatment plans are ongoing, right? You don't just make it once and that's it. It's an ongoing thing. Let me know if you knew that. Hopefully you did. Yep, it's ongoing. So these are things that you are, even if it's not in a formal way, where you're assessing or you're like reviewing the treatment plan. Some practices do 3 months, some practices do 6 months, some practices do, hopefully you check it in before a year is out. And Jakari, let me know because you're the seasoned one. You can help us out in here. I know sometimes it doesn't have to be like a formal thing, but I think at the 3-month mark, you should always be assessing. Sometimes you're assessing in every session because you're checking in with them and you're like doing like the checkpoints. So that's an informal assessment. Yes, I always say every 3 months. Yep, I agree with that. Every 3 months because so much can change in 1 month. So if you let 3 months go by, I agree. That is quality supervision. Okay. So I'm gonna move on for time's sake because I at least want to get through A. Okay. So, and I know it's late. It's 10 o'clock Eastern Standard. They aren't formal and are a way to see if a client has changed or grown compared to where they were. Yep. Exactly. So not only does it benefit you as a therapist because it kind of lets you know like your guiding point, but you can reflect that to the client, right? So they can understand how well they've grown and it gives them more insight, etc. Because at the end of the day, your services is for the welfare of them. Yep, exactly. Okay. So then the next subsection is the support network involvement. So as the therapist or the counselor, another thing to know, I say counselor because technically that is a name according to ASCA, okay, or the ACA, not ASCA, that's school counseling. But therapist, counselor, all interchangeable, right? But so as a counselor, you recognize that support networks hold various meanings in the lives of the clients and consider enlisting the support, the understanding and involvement of others, okay? That just basically means that you got to know that the counseling relationship is not just about you and the client, okay? You've got their environments, you've got all the systems, think of Brofenbrenner, you've got religion, you've got like culture, you've got socioeconomic status, all of that, okay? And so you got to think too, as clients, they have like the positive resources. When appropriate, it's appropriate. I think this is how we leverage, especially if you work with kids, we leverage, or if you work in community-based settings, we leverage the community because people heal through community, okay? Let's see. Type in the chat got you or something if I'm going at a good pace because I can talk a mile a minute. My brain goes further than my mouth goes sometimes. Sorry. I just be thinking and going. Okay, perfect. I see it got you there, got you. Perfect. Informed consent. Here we go. So here's the thing. Informed consent is a rite of passage to the relationship, period. Okay. Informed consent is also ongoing. All right. Just because you may mention something in your disclosure when you first start, you do your intake, you first started, that doesn't mean that you have to close the informed consent connection. It's ongoing. Okay. Clients have the freedom to choose whether to enter or remain in the therapeutic relationship. If they say they want to stop, they have the right to stop. They have the autonomy to stop. I think that that's common sense. But when you think about, like, let's say though, you have a complex situation. Maybe you know that you have a client who is not the most stable, and you don't want them to be abandoned in the process. They can still withdraw their consent. Even if you know you've got data and you know as the clinician that if they stop therapy, something bad could happen, they can still withdraw. They have that right. All right. Let me know if y'all know that. Put a thumbs up in the chat if you know that. It's unfortunate, but I think like in inpatient settings or like residentials, they do what's called like signing out as against medical advice, AMA. We know that if they did that, they can go and relapse. They can go back to the DV relationship. They can maybe act on impulsive SI or SH, but we still have no control. Okay. They have every right to withdraw at any time. All right. And then also, we have the obligation to make certain things known verbally and written. This means, you guys remember when you created your disclosures, right? When you were trying to apply, I think that's statewide. I think every state, you have to submit a professional disclosure, right? So we have to do that. We have to let our clients know. Let's say, for instance, we have a collection agency. Like if they don't pay, they have to know that they can be sent to collections. We have to let them know what type of therapy we perform. We have to let them know what happens in case of emergencies. All of those things has to be communicated with the client. Welcome in, Mr. Moore. We're going over the ACA Code of Ethics tonight. Another thing, like I was saying, it's ongoing. Okay. Is therapy, is informed consent a one-time thing, or is it ongoing? When I saw this, I was like, oh, I remember reading that. I was doing my little ADHD dance in the seat. I was moving. I was, because that's how I recall information. I was like, I got me a free point. So, and in my mind, freebie points are things that I don't have to dissect questions on. In my intensive, I teach folks how to look at context clues in a question. If you are clueless, and sometimes you'll get questions that you're like, I have not studied this information, but I teach you the way to review the question to where you can figure out the answer. So when I say freebie points, it's those things that you should just know. You already know that. It's ongoing. There you go. Hopefully the exam you get that question or a question like it. It comes straight from the source. The source is the ACA Code of Ethics. All right. Another thing, as a therapist or counselor, you have to document the discussions and informed consent throughout the entire counseling relationship. Remember, the first section is about the counseling relationship. They have to know, all right? They have to know what's going on because it's a relational thing. It's already sort of like a power dynamic anyway, because technically you are the therapist. So they got to know that they have like it's like an equal relationship. Okay. Now, types of information needed. All right. Types of information needed. As the therapist, we have to tell our clients every single service that we provide. Okay. If you know that the client is presenting one way and you don't provide that service, if you take that client on for the sake of getting another billable hour, you are an unethical therapist. Okay. And that's on the Code of Ethics. That's not on my opinion. And I know it's easier said than done, especially if you work in CMH or if you work at a place where they just accept anybody and you don't have as much say so. Here's where you express your clinical boundary. I'm not comfortable because I feel like this person needs EMDR and we don't do that here. Okay. You have to let them know the services that you provide because that is part of You just have to do that. You just have to. At the end of the day, you just have to, okay? As a therapist, you have to ensure that your client understands all of the implications of any diagnosis that you give them, okay? Say, for instance, you work at a place that's not CMH, or it's not like, and not to say CMH doesn't, the clients don't have diagnoses. They do, but billing looks different at every place that you work, especially if you are in private practice. You know that your pay is tied to a diagnosis because that's tied to what insurance will cover for the client. Okay. And then in return, that's tied to what insurance reimburses you as the clinician. All right. Anytime you give a client a diagnosis, they have to know. Okay. You got to explain why they meet criteria. It needs to be written, and it needs to be explained in a way that they understand it, okay? Not just for insurance purposes, but for the sake of the client. And then also, you have to let your clients know about all the fees associated with your services, etc. We kind of talked about that. So like, people have that in their disclosures, okay? Now, here's a little homework. Hopefully, it's already in your disclosures, because I think everybody in here is either practicing or in grad school or internship. Make sure you have the fee in your disclosure, okay? Because sometimes the state they just review and just approve everything. And they don't be looking, right? But your clients have access to that, okay? Now, another thing, developmental and cultural sensitivity. Anybody, tell me why this would even be like in this section. Why would developmental and cultural sensitivity be in the section of the counseling relationship? Why? I apologize if this feels like a class. I don't want it to be. I want it to be like, I want to give this to you in a way where you can like recall it. You can remember what we talked about, and you can pull it out, actively recall it. Yep. We're going to develop, relationships with clients who are different from us, right? It's a relational thing. It's two people. We're doing the dance in therapy, right? It's the two people, because we work with so many different people. Yes. The biggest thing about our field is that it is not a cookie cutter field. There is not one same type of client. I'm telling you, if that was the case, we wouldn't have a complete DSM-5 of all the disorders, right? We need to be aware of the differences that we see on an everyday basis, right? So we have to communicate information in a way that our clients understand them. There's this idea that as the therapist, we cannot assume that our clients just know what we know. Y'all, we can't, because they don't. Number one, they didn't do the grad. You might have a therapist as a client. Okay, that's not unheard of, but they didn't go through the schooling that we went through. They don't review the code of ethics like we're doing right now. So we cannot expect them to know therapist lingo. That's why I say a lot of clients learn a lot more from therapists who don't bombard them with all this therapist lingo that they don't understand. Okay? So we want to make sure that we are communicating things to them in a way that they can clearly understand and resonate with, right? So when they have like issue with understanding our language, maybe they don't speak the same language, or English is not their first language, we want to make sure that we have services in place to where that they can understand us. Interpreters, translators, if they have different disabilities, we want to just make sure that we are communicating in a way that is individualized for them. Because who is the relationship about? The welfare of the what? Type it in the chat. Welfare of the what, or of the who, not the what, the who. Welfare of who? The client. Ding, 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 ding. Dion, you win a prize. The prize is, I don't know. Yep, the client, the welfare of the client. We want to make sure that the services we provide is going to be beneficial for them, okay? that's basically that when it comes down to the counseling relationship. Now, here is another thing. Inability. Yes, the prize will be a passing score. Yes, it will and will. Okay. So, inability to give consent. So, when counseling minors, right? Incapacitated adults or other people who are unable to give their voluntary consent, you have to seek the assent. Type assent in the chat. Assent, because this is something that I feel like a lot of folks forget about or don't know. But y'all, this is a read this A to D. Hopefully y'all go back and review this code of ethics. There is exam questions in this portion. And that's on Rosenthal. And that's also on the Code of Ethics. It's also there's this book, this is a blue book called the Mastering the National Counseling Examination. Okay. You have to seek the assent of clients to services and include them in decision making as appropriate. Okay. At the end of the day, it's not about you as the decision maker, because the welfare will always be of the client. If you are unable to get like a written consent, you want to make sure you're seeking assent. Okay. Especially when you're working with minors. Let's say you're working with a child in whatever setting and you're meeting with the child. You know the child can't sign their own documents, right? So you have to give that child, you have to let them know what's going on. Remember, you've got to, informed consent is ongoing. So you got to explain it in a way that they understand it. So you're getting their assent, but you also have to get consent from a legal guardian. You guys got that? You still must seek assent. You still have to, okay? You have to. Exam questions in that section. Promise you. Both times I saw it. Okay, let's go down. Mandated clients, okay? So you still have to discuss the required. Yep, that's the name for it. If you see it on that exam, you're going to say ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding, ding. I know exactly what this word is, where it comes from, and that is your freebie point. All right. So mandated clients. Let me know if I'm going too fast, y'all. I'm telling you, I got coffee at 10 p.m., 10:26 p.m. So mandated clients, you still have to let them know the limits to confidentiality, what that is, etc. You have to explain what type of information and who that information is shared with. Because when you have a mandated client, guess what? They're mandated for a reason. Maybe they're on probation. Maybe they're in a DV group where like the judge says you have to do therapy if you want to go back out into the world and not go to jail because you have a problem with keeping your hands to yourself, right? Whatever it may be, you still have to let them know that legally you could be required, because guys, law will always trump ethics, unfortunately. In some ways, unfortunately. Okay. The law will always trump the ethics. All right. So you may have to give over information, but you still want to give only the pertinent information. You want to still protect your client, but that's another section, I think. But I know another section, but you still need to let the mandated clients know that you might have to share information with their parolees or their officers or whoever needs the information. You got to let them know that, okay? You don't want them to be blindsided by like a report that came from you and you didn't let them know that you had to talk to somebody. And that's pretty much it when it comes to mandated clients. Also, too, mandated clients sometimes don't be showing up, especially if it's a group. You still have to let them know, even if you have nothing to do with the issue that sent them to court or that made them be a mandated client. You got to let them know if they don't show up, they could potentially have a consequence. And the consequence is not with you as the therapist, but it's going to be with whoever, the judge, the court, whoever. Okay, guys, you still have to let them know. Let me know. Is anybody like has ever worked with like a group that was mandated, like it was like a mandated group and you had to take attendance? Whew, those attendance sheets give me anxiety. I remember doing that. I think it was in a rotation at the school. Never, and I don't want to do that. But I know people who work with maybe substance abuse or different types of things. Depending on the population you work with, you might have to take attendance and send that attendance somewhere. An anger management group for teens. Oh, bless you. Now that sounds like hard work, but not a group. Yep. And sometimes you got to report if they show up or not, right? And that has nothing to do with you. That's the court. But remember, law trumps ethics. Even if you know and you want to believe that your client is a good client and you just know their heart because you are a wonderful therapist, the law is always going to trump all of those feelings. It's always going to trump it. Always. And then as a therapist, you can warn your clients hey, you didn't show up. I got to report this, but here's how I can support you, whatever you feel comfortable to, right? So 4, okay, so avoiding harm and imposing values. This is a big one, right? This is a big one. We don't want our values or our biases to get in the way of the therapeutic process, because this whole section is on the counseling relationship, okay? And who is the relationship about? If you are the therapist, it's about who? Who should the focus be for? It should be for, starts with the C, ends with the T. Who's it for? I used to be an elementary teacher. I would say stuff like that. My students would call me corny. They wouldn't like stuff like that. The client. There you go, Kaleo. The client. Yes, the client. They would think I was a cheesehead. Okay, but seriously though, we have to avoid imposing our own values, because that can do more harm than good. Remember, it's not about you. You're not the expert. The client is the expert in their own life. They just need you to help support them and guide them, okay? So you have to, as the therapist, avoid harming their clients, their trainees, right? If you're a supervisor, you can speak to this too, Jakari. If you're the supervisor, you got to avoid, right? If you're a research participant, you have to avoid doing harm to them, right? You have to. Sorry, I skipped it. I'm trying to go back. I think that's really pretty much it. All right. That's it. That's literally it for that. Because now we're going down to 4B, and they talk more about it in the personal values. Let's scroll down here. I'm going to use my brain and scroll. I can't find my mouse. I think I left it in the office. Okay. So personal values, like Daniela said, a lot of this stuff is common sense, at least for the counseling relationship portion of the code of ethics. Because it's literally just the common sense of how to be a therapist. But this should be your Bible when you have tough decision-making things to do, especially if you're in supervision and you feel like you cannot connect with your supervisor. I don't care. You need the code of ethics. If you become in private practice, you do your own thing, you got to consult with somebody else, right? And I love TT for that purpose. I've met a lot of people, just great clinicians who have experience, who just know they've been there, done that in a way, right? So consulting saves you from being unethical. Always remember that. But your personal values, so you got to make sure that you're aware of those and you don't impose them on the client. You have to respect the diversity of the client, and you have to seek training in areas where you feel like you might be at risk of doing harm or imposing your own values onto them. Okay. I think the cowardly thing, this is a personal opinion, when you're uncomfortable with the client, maybe there's some stuff coming up for you, type in the chat, is that transference or counter-transference? When you're the therapist and the client presents some way and now you're feeling ugh, I feel a way. What is that? Is that transference or counter-transference? Yep. So this is where, counter. Yep, counter. Memory device, ding, 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 memory device, counter counselor, counter counselor, right? Okay. So as the counselor, if you are feeling anything come up for you with any client, counter transference. As the counselor, you got the counter. Okay. Yep. And that's what we do. That we talk. Deanna Crystal know, and Amber know too. Not because Amber joined. We will memory device this exam until we can't memory device it anymore. Because listen, once you get it, you get it. Once you pass, you can do away with this stuff, y'all. Once you just lock in and you good to go, you can start teaching a class on it. You know? If you feel like you want to nerd out like me, you can host a TT live on it. But yeah, just saying, right? So like if you know, yep, counter counselor. Yep. So if you know that maybe something is coming up for you, it's on you as the therapist to seek supervision. You can't just refer somebody out because you don't like them or something comes up with you. You got to do your own work. Like Amber said, how in the world can you be a helper if you don't have a helper? Okay, keep that in mind. She didn't say it like that, but that's what what she said basically is that, right? As a therapist, the therapist needs a therapist too. Okay. Let's move on to prohibited non-counseling roles and relationships. All right, common sense. Now, it's not so common sense. I don't know if y'all seen something recently I saw where like a therapist like had a sexual relationship with somebody. I think it was on Facebook. I don't know. I can't tell what's AI or not, but I don't know where it was at. But he was like, he was married in relationship with a couple of them. I mean, really though, really. No, you don't. And I hope that therapist waited until at least how many years, y'all. Type it in the chat because this might be a test question. How many years can you have a dual relationship or a relationship with a client? I say don't ever do it. Don't ever. Not 7. Not 7. Where y'all getting 7? 5. Yep. 5 years, right? 5 years. But please don't ever do it. But hey, you got to live your own life. Live your own life, right? But so while you are actively working with clients, sexual and romantic relationships or interactions are unethical. Don't do them. It's prohibited. But so this applies to both in person and electronic. So let's say you see a client online or you met them online, they're in a different state. If they are a client, even if they're virtual or even if it's a long distance relationship, this still applies. Common sense. We know this, right? Don't do it. Avoid it. Avoid. This is where we can preach avoidance. So previous sexual or romantic relationships, right? So if it's somebody from your past that maybe you went to a festival and you hooked up with them, you cannot counsel them. All right. Common sense should be common, but this is not a cookie cutter profession. Everybody got their own morals, no judgment. But according to the code of ethics, what does it say? It is prohibited. All right. You cannot do it. You also cannot provide therapy to friends or family members. Don't do it. That's right. Don't do it. You can't provide therapy to friends or family. You can't. Number 1 is conflicting. You can't remain objective them in a way where you have a different background of what's happening. It just won't work. And a lot of folks too think that just because we're therapists, we got to provide therapy or we got to always just know how to put on our therapy hat. You can put your foot down. And hopefully you all put your foot down. Hi, Farron. Welcome in. We are going over the code of ethics tonight. Yes, it's like a dual relationship. Yes, it is. Virtual relationships with current clients, don't do it. Like Amber says, don't do it. Just don't do it. Too sticky. It's prohibited. And guess what? You can track text messages, emails. Think about all the work that you put into as being a therapist. Don't jeopardize your license because you want to sneak and have an online relationship with a client or a past client. Nope. If it's not been 5 years, don't do it. What you do after 5 years, that's on you. But if it hasn't been 5 years, you cannot do it. And that is on the code of ethics. That's not on Shayla. That's on the code of ethics. All right. Oh, too, I also make the disclaimer too on social media. If you find me, you are at risk of jeopardizing your own confidentiality. That's on you. I also block clients respectfully. And I don't mention it. If I notice that they come to my TikTok, I meet them in session, I don't bring it up unless they bring it up. I blocked you, but hey, it's for the good. It's for your welfare. Anywho, managing and maintaining boundaries and professional relationships. So here's the thing, right? Counselors have to consider the risk and benefits of accepting as clients those with whom they have had a previous relationship. This is from people from the far past. You have to still understand that it's a professional relationship. How many of you have ever moved practices and maybe, I know some group practices, for example, they put clauses where you can't take the clients with you, but clients have free will. They can look you up. So even then, at a new practice, you may still be, because you're in charge of their records, you have to prove that it's a business relationship because you have to be professional. Yep. You got to prove that it's a business relationship because you've had some type of interaction with them in the past. You got to prove that it was a business relationship. So it's on you as a therapist to safeguard their records. And that's on the code of ethics. So as a therapist, when you accept clients, you got to make sure that you are taking all the professional precautions, informed consent, consultation, supervision, all of that. It's getting late, y'all. I know it's so much in this. Hopefully I get through at least A. Maybe I'll go live every day to get through the code of ethics this week. Because in my group, if you're in my NCE study intensive, what are we going through for the next 2 weeks until we meet again? So this is right up your alley. This is that extra repetition. Guys, repetition is good. Groups and ethics. Repetition is good. The more you get familiar with the content, the more that you're going to be able to actively recall. So yes, this is an ethics live, but it's also relevant to what you're going to see on that exam. The more that you're going to be able to recall when you have to look and answer questions. All right. So extending counseling boundaries. Counselors consider the risk and benefits of extending current counseling relationships beyond conventional parameters. Example, attending a client's formal ceremony. I feel a way about this. I talked about it in the session yesterday with the intensive members. I say avoid it, but that is my own moral. I hate that I can't go. As a teacher, I went to baptisms, I went to birthday parties, I went to first communions, but as a therapist, you can't do it. You want to be cognizant of extending these boundaries because you could potentially cross the line, all right? Because you want to protect the welfare of the client. Now, if the client comes back in session and shows you pictures of everything that happened, I live for that moment. Oh, please, yes, let me see. But don't show up. Some people do, but that's them. But according to the ethics, you might not want to show up. Because if you show up, you can be risking their confidentiality, and that is against the code of ethics. It's also a HIPAA violation. I say just avoid it because just don't do it. Just settle for them showing you the pictures. Also, documenting. So we know the rule of thumb. If you don't document, did it happen? Type it in the chat. If you don't document, did it happen if you don't document it? I don't know. Nope. Amber says nope, right? So here's the thing. You have to document or safeguard records if you know of clients or if you had any sort of interactions with them in the past, especially relevant if you move practices and you are in charge of their records. You have to safeguard that information, right? It has to be documented. I will always remind you that you have to prove that it's a business relationship in some way. And if you go to a practice and they don't question that and you are still a pre-licensed clinician, I would be a little cautious, right? I think, let's see, Jakari's in here too. You could probably speak towards that as a supervisor, but you want to, like, people working at your practice, you probably want to know how they know people. Because it's at the end of the day, it's your practice and your license. You got to safeguard their information. So role changes in the professional relationship. The thing about therapy being relational is that it's not fluid, right? Your role is interchangeable. And Dion, I'm picking on you. And Crystal, I'm picking on you. Amber, we haven't gotten to it yet. But when you think of your life as the therapist and how you change, you're the therapist, but you have other roles. Who is the theorist who coined that? I'm not going to give you any more clues. That's all I'm doing. Life space, life roles. That's it. Who is it? What's his name? Repetition is good. We're talking about ethics, but other theorists come into play. Where you're the therapist, but you're still navigating through life in different roles. So you're also a therapist, but some of you are also still students. Some of you are also still emerging clinicians. Well, some of us are still also emerging clinicians, right? I'm going to be a student again in a couple weeks, starting my PhD program. So it's not fluid. Super. Yes, Crystal. Life, space, lifespan, right? So your role can change in the professional relationship, right? So here's the thing. Changing from individual to relationship or family counseling or vice versa. Changing from an evaluator to the therapist role, because sometimes you can be a consultant, but then you can also be the therapist. Being a consultant is not the same as being a therapist, right? You can also change from being a counselor to a mediator, right? Your client has to know what role you are in. Now, my boundary as an emerging clinician, and I just was connected to an amazing supervisor, thank the Lord both times, but I said, I don't feel comfortable having siblings plus a parent in individual therapy. I can handle the siblings, but I think that each client needed their own person per se, because it was hard for me to see things from the parental side because I had had the clients for a year. Outside of the family dynamic, I was not comfortable allowing myself to be the clinician for the parent because it was a completely different role, right? But in the event that your role changes, remember, consent is ongoing. You must let the client know everything that's happening, every change. Y'all got that? All right. Let me know if I'm going too fast, or if we have questions, type them in the chat. I will answer and we can keep going. Yes. All right. So non-professional interactions or relationships other than sexual or romantic interactions, like Amber said, you are going to risk it being a dual relationship. Don't do it. Y'all, common sense. Daniela, common sense. You said it. Common sense. Don't do it. Right? We know this one. Some of this stuff in counseling relationships should be common sense. Don't do it. So when you see those questions on the exams, think of that. Oh, I was on that live. I remember when I said don't do it. Or I remember when I said this is common sense. It is. Y'all got this. This is where you're going to get your confidence boost when you are answering questions about ethics. Now, I will say some of those questions will come in the form of being a scenario, right? And in my strategy lives that I host, I talk about how to dissect the scenario to figure out the answer. But because you are going to study and work on your recall, you're going to be able to pull up those small little things that put you in the remembrance of what you should and shouldn't do. And there's your answer. For example, if you read a question and your spidey senses say, oh my goodness, could be a dual relationship, don't do it. All right. Now, so as therapists, we are advocates, especially if you work with kiddos. Type in the chat yes or whatever if you have ever attended an IEP meeting for a kid, or because at the end of the day, you're the support for the family. You're their advocate. Yep. You cannot be a therapist and not be an advocate, because the relationship is not just about the therapy room. It's about the whole entire system. All right. The system, Brofenbrenner. Right? Everything about the system, everything about the client and what's happening, you have to be their advocate when appropriate. And hopefully it's always appropriate. Hopefully you guys take that lens. It's got to be for the growth and the development of the client. Let's see. We're almost to section B. We can do it, I think. So confidentiality and advocacy. Here's the thing. You still have to maintain consent. Consent is ongoing, y'all. All right. So let's say You have a client and they gave an ROI for their therapist or doctor. Megan, they gave an ROI for their therapist or doctor, but they say, hey, you can talk to them, but you can only share this information. That is all that you're supposed to share, because you still have to maintain confidentiality as you are acting in an advocacy role. As a therapist, the welfare is always for the client. Don't get on the phone oversharing stuff to anybody they gave ROIs for if it's not relevant and if you know that you have not gotten consent to do so. So when a counselor agrees to provide counseling services to two or more persons who have a relationship, you have to clarify as a therapist, right, the nature of the relationship. So this could be couples, this could be kids and their parents, right? You have to clarify or withdraw if you are not able to do it. Now, not necessarily if you are uncomfortable, but if you are unable to do so. For the example I said, I had 2 siblings. There was no way I could do individual billing codes, individual therapy for 2 siblings plus a parent. I could do a family code. I could do a family code, conjoint, maybe not even a group. That's a whole different treatment plan. But I could do a conjoint code, but I couldn't do all 3 because I'm like, there's no way. You said you had a therapist. Oh, Amber, you're at risk of being messy when you do that. It's messy. I feel like it's messy enough when you work with couples. It's messy enough when you work with kids and parents too. So just be careful of that, right? And that's not on my opinion. That's based on the code of ethics. Now, group work. You see why the things are just making sense. In my NCE intensive, we're going over groups and ethics at the same time. There's a reason for it. Group work. As a group therapist or as a therapist who is providing group services, screening is part of what you have to do. Not only do you have to screen, but you have to pre-screen before you screen. Imagine you have somebody who found your group based on an advertisement or maybe Psychology Today, and at 2 months ago, they were ready for group, but now it's been 5 months later when there's a spot that opened or you have a group that's available, and now they're in active psychosis, or now they are not sober anymore. They are not eligible for group right now. Who coined the curative factors for group, y'all? What's his name? NCE question. People in my NCE intensive should know this. What's his name? There are curative factors. If you don't have these factors, you are not ready for group, according to this person. What's his name? Oh, not Corey. Yellum. Yep. Hi, Ceci. Not Corey. No. Amber, go with your first mind. Don't you go changing stuff. Go with your first mind. You had it right. How many curative factors does he have? In order to be cured, you have to have these factors. 11. Yep. And Megan, you know this. Corey, he was basically what the group leader should do. The active listening, the paraphrasing, controlling the group, right? Everything we know about being therapists, but think about it in a group term. That girl. All right. So protecting your client in a group setting. Here's the thing. Now, risky shift, y'all. Risky shift. There is no way that you can make sure that everything is said in group stays in group. Y'all know that, right? You can make the disclaimer as the therapist or the group leader, hey, I want this space to be where we feel comfortable sharing. I want everyone to come in here to feel open, but you cannot control what one group member might go home and pillow talk to their partner. So now everything that happened in group, their partner knows about, but you have no control over it. But you still have to make that disclaimer. I'm going to keep everything that you share. I'm not going to share it, but I cannot guarantee that other group members may not share that. But you still want to make sure that you're protecting your clients from physical, emotional, or psychological trauma. If you notice that maybe there's a group member who's not ready for group, because group is not for everybody, then you might have that conversation after group. Hey, I want to pull you aside. Let's have a chat. I think you need to meet with me individually. You're not ready for group right now. Don't say it like that, but you have to do that because the welfare of the client. Now, we can get through section B. We can. So fees and practices. So here's the thing. So if you work in an organization that provides counseling services, do not refer clients to their private practice. Let's say you are a school counselor. There are people who do both. Or you work in a setting where maybe you are a school-based therapist. That's your W-2 job. And then maybe on the side, you have your own 1099 little gig or whatever you do. You can't say, hey, I got my own gig here. Here's my stuff. Don't do it. You can't do that. And that's not me. That's on ACA, not ACA. Now, if they Google you, that is on them. They can Google you, but then now it's up to you to safeguard their information and prove that it's a business relationship, okay? Have their own free will. Now, if it's a dual relationship though, let's say it's a student in your classroom or someone who you work with closely in one way, it's not ethical for you to be their therapist, all right? Don't do it. Amber said it. Don't do it. Now, unacceptable business practices. Counselors do not participate in fee splitting. They don't give or receive commission, rebates, or any form remuneration. My eyes, y'all. When referring clients for professional services. No, we can't use our clients as like in that way. No, y'all, if people didn't do it, it wouldn't be in here. And the supervisor in the chat, no, she probably seen and heard of some stuff. Yes, sis, that very good info. And I think it's good to just reference and just to have, even if we're not trying to take a test. We just need to know it because it protects us, okay? This is our guide. This is what we should have. Now, you don't have to go and just study it. But if you are questioning something, you might have to go in your memory. Now, establishing fees, that needs to be in your disclosure or your website. They need to know what your fees are. If you use a collection agency, if they don't pay, if you accept the sliding scale, whether or not you should accept their insurance, they have to know that, okay? Legally permissible also. Assist the client in locating comparable and affordable services. All right. Say that you are only a private pay person. I've seen a lot of whole private pay discourse on TikTok. I admire it. I think I've seen a lot of folks making bank. So if you know that a client can't afford you, then it might be up to you, especially so that you don't abandon them and do harm to them, to help them find comparable services. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Especially if they can't afford you. You can do a sliding scale, but let's say the sliding scale is not scaling. They're not paying because they can't. You can help find them free or cheaper services. So bartering is a no-no. You cannot say, hey, in exchange for a session, my bundles or get my nails or my toes done. You can't do that. Common sense, like Daniela said, don't do it like Amber said. Receiving gifts. Now, okay, there are challenges for accepting gifts, but sometimes it is culturally, what do you call it? Like part of the relationship where maybe make you a banana loaf bread or something. And you can accept that. You have to use your discernment. You have to use your clinical discretion. If you don't know, please consult with the supervisor, etc., or someone else. But you just have to be cognizant that you can't receive a gift like a Apple Watch or a new car from a client. Termination and referral. You cannot terminate a client just because you have some counter transference. What's the memory device, guys? Counter C for counselor. Just because you feel something, you can't refer them. Because you don't agree with their lifestyle, you can't refer them. That is bogus. Okay. You can only refer if you know that you're not competent. For instance, if you know someone has extreme PTSD and you know that they will benefit from EMDR, you can refer them then. If it's beyond your scope of practice, you absolutely should refer them. Okay. Don't claim to provide a service to a client that needs a specific type of service and you don't do it. All right. Now, the thing of appropriate termination and the values, like I said, if you know that the counseling relationship needs to come to an end, maybe they've met all their goals. Maybe because of your notes Insurance is like, I'm not covering them no more. Who knows, right? Or maybe you know that the client is not making progress. You want to make sure that you are terminating them to a service and you're not just leaving them out to dry. Okay? Is their discharge going to be? Where is their step down going to be? Okay? If they are successful, like their graduations, depending on the program, then maybe their discharge is back to the community. If you work at a CMH, IOP, I think, Dion, you work at residential, like you res, they can now go to see an outpatient therapist. You want to make sure wherever you are terminating them, they have a destination. All right. And that goes to appropriate transfer. Okay. Just transfer because you don't agree with their lifestyle. At the end of the day, the whole section is on the counseling relationship. Now, you need to be aware of your own biases and you need to deal with whatever's coming up. If you notice that like coming up for you, maybe your values don't align with theirs and what they're presenting with is all about that, then maybe you need to talk about transferring them, okay? Cannot abandon your client because that's considered neglect. Like Amber said, don't do it. All right, guys, we made it through section A. Any questions? This is going to be recorded. If you want access to this recording and you're not in my NCE intensive, send me your email DM and I will get it to you.